How y'all doing? Don back here again, and we're going to learn about logging today. Whereas the thumbnail showed, go on a log ride. Whee! So, in every other language that I've used, which that basically would be mostly PHP and JavaScript, if you wanted to do logging, you had to acquire some kind of third-party dependency. In PHP, this would be like monolog. That's used pretty heavily. And in JavaScript, or I should say specifically within Node, there's I think a very popular package I see that gets used a lot with Express called Morgan. Um, and if you want to do like if you want to utilize like a more formal logging framework like those do exist with Go, and we will look at one of those as well. But Go actually has a logging package built into the standard packages, and that's what we're going to start with by looking at first. So to get started doing very simple logging in Go, you don't even have to instantiate your own logger. By default, there's like a kind of like a base simple logger in the log package that you can use with some convenience functions. So let's log some information. Um, you would import the log package, but my plugins will automatically import the stuff as I use it. So I'm gonna do log.println. I'm just gonna say this is my print mess. This is my log message, like that. It's going to pull it in today, and then I'm going to run this. Run main. Oh wait, I meant log. Go run log. And you will see I have my log message here, and you'll notice that there's some information automatically prepended, yeah, to the beginning of this, and it's the date and the time. Now we can actually control to some extent what information is actually stuck at the beginning of our message here through some things called flags. So if we go to the log package, you will see that in the logger struct, there is a function here called set flags. And it says sets the output flags for logger. The flag bits are L date, L time, and so on. If you're wondering what those are, if you go to constants, here's all of the flags for what information can be stuck at the beginning of a message. There's by default it uses these, which is the date and time, like we saw. But there's some other things you can stick on here. You can have the microseconds, the complete like full path name to that file, the short file name, and also it has the line numbers here. This will, if you're using the date time stuff, this will use your UTC time zones, instead of whatever your like local time zone is. And it says move the prefix from the beginning. I don't think I've actually ever used this one, so I don't actually really understand what that does. So you can just try it on your own, but I'm going to kind of ignore that one right now. So by default, we know it uses this one. So let's add the short file name to this. Okay. So to change the flags that are on like the standard built-in logger, there's a function you can use called log.set flags like that, and you just pass in all of the flags that you want separated by vertical slashes or pipes, whatever you want to call them. And we're going to do log dot. I want lstd flags because that's the standard one. And then I'm also going to do log dot l short file like that. Okay. I'm typing like crap right now. Okay. So if we run this now you will see there's an the file name of where the log was called and what line number was called from is also stuck here now as well. As far as I know, there's no real way to control the ordering of these things. It's basically just the flags are used to basically turn off and turn on certain information. There's a couple other convenience methods on here that you can use for the standard logger. There's three like varieties of ways to interact with the standard logger, and they all also have a to alternatives of it, and they're all kind of based off like the printf stuff. There's log.print, and then there's print line and printf, and these all by default go out to the standard error output stream of whatever you're running this program. But there's two other versions of this. There's log.fatal and log.panic. And they do the same thing fundamentally as print, but they also do something extra after they run. And if you want to see what happens, so instead of doing print line, we're going to do fatal. And if I run this, I don't know if it's going to notice any difference. So you'll notice that exit status 1. So what happens is when you call log.fatal, it logs this message right here and then calls the os.exit with the exit code of 1, meaning your program like exited unexpected. And as you might guess, the last one is called panic, and you can probably guess what that does. If we run this, you will see that it printed out the message, and then you'll notice that the runtime panicked, which makes sense. So that's basically what it did. It logged this message, and then it called panic to make the runtime panic and crash. In case your program, just some really weird edge case happens that should never happen, that is going to just completely screw everything up. You're just saying like abort, stop everything that's happening, kill the system now. So this is fine that we have we're interacting with the standard logger and we're writing stuff out the standard error, blah blah blah. But it'd be more useful if we could store this information somewhere so that we can access it later. And to do that, you can actually change where the standard logger is writing out its data to with a function called setOutput. Now setOutput, the argument it takes is just anything that implements, I think it's like IO writer. So this could be anything that you've created that implements IO writer. But a very common and useful thing to do is to maybe just write it out to a file. So let's write it out to a file. So I'm going to do file error equals os.open file. And I'm just going to call it logs.txt. Now we need to pass in the flags to set how we're opening this file. So I'm going to do os.o append oso create to create the file if it doesn't exist, and os.o er only, what I think is that write only? I think that's write only. And then for the file permissions, we'll say 666, which basically means I don't care. Of course, we're going to check for errors like usual. We're going to do if error does not equal nil. Let's go log.fatal, the error. And then, since we have our file open now, we're going to do log.setOutput to the file. And now, if I run this, notice we didn't see anything, right? But if I do ll, oops, you'll see now there's a logs.txt file. And if we cat logs.txt, there is our log message right there. So now we can interact with the standard logger in a few different ways, and we can write it out to a file. But maybe there's some, you want to do have some different loggers depending on some conditions. It's not uncommon if you're used to working with like logging frameworks that maybe you have like a logger for warnings and one for info and one for errors and stuff like that. And you can actually create your own instances of the logger from the log package. So let's do that. We're going to go up here, and I'm going to create some vars up here that I'm going to initialize later. So we're going to have warning logger is of type a pointer to log.logger, and that's because the new function in the log package returns a pointer to the newly created logger. and we're gonna have an info one of the same type, and then an error logger of this type, logger like that. And we can't. Okay, there we go. So let's set this up now so that we're having this stuff set up by default. So I'm gonna define an init function here. If you've never seen an init function and Go, basically, if it's kind of has a special meaning like how main does, where main is the entry point to a Go program. If init is defined before main is called, init will be called, basically. And this is typically a lot of times if there's some like setup that needs to be done in a program, you'll see them stick everything in init. So we're gonna move this file being opened here to here, like this, and we're going to check our error. I'm gonna move that up here as well. And then finally, we're going to do info logger equals log.new, and it takes in 3 arguments. And first one is the where it's writing out its messages to. So anything that implements io.writer. So we're going to pass in our file, and then I believe it's the prefix. What info will go before the other prefix that's automatically generated. So I'm going to say this is the info logger, so we're going to say info, and then we have to pass in our flags. So I'm going to say log.l, was it std, right? Standard flags, yeah. And I'm going to say log.l short name, profile, okay. Just like that. And then these are going to be fairly similar. See, warning logger equals log.new file warning, and then the same flags, lst flags, log.l short file. Then last is the error logger, equals log.new file error log.lstd flags and log.l short file. So we have our log set up now. So let's print some stuff out to them now. Let's get rid of this stuff, and we're gonna do info logger dot print line. This is some info, and then maybe we're going to do warning logger print line. This is probably important because typically if you're printing out warning, it's probably something that shouldn't be happening and you want to check. And then finally error logger print line, something went wrong, like that. Now, if I'm going to remove that first logs.txt file that we had, and we're going to run this. So we don't see anything, of course, because we set all these to write out to a file. And if I cat out that file again, you will see that we have the text that we put here before the information that's automatically generated from the flags, and then the message. So basically, using the standard logging package, you can essentially create something kind of akin to that you would normally see with a logging framework, where you have like info, warning, debug, error, fatal, stuff like that. So that's all you. That's pretty much all there is to the standard logging library. But now I'm actually going to use an actual logging framework that is available to use in Go. And if I go back over here, we're going to use this one called logrus. This is the one that somebody mentioned, and I just kind of poked around with it, and seemed like pretty good option to use. I don't see no reason why not to. So since we're going to use this, first thing we need to do is we need to init a Go module so that I can use it within this directory. By the way, the module name I'm initializing this to, this code will be in a Git repo called that. So if you want to reference this code later, you can just go look for it there. So I'm gonna go mod init and get gitlab.com-425 and go logging example. So now I'm going to make sure I import that dependency that I pulled in so I can actually use it. SIRUPSEN logrus. And I'm going to alias it as log, so it's kind of more natural to use it. And just to test it, we're going to do log.info. I'm going to say this is some info, just like that. And if I do go run logrus.go, you'll see info. This is some info. What is actually not really sure what the numbers mean. Logo info. Maybe just do another info or check. This is some more info. And I run that. Okay, I'm not really actually sure what the numbers next to it actually means. But we can. It does color code the info too, which is interesting. So if I do error, I say this is an error. Oh my god, something went horribly wrong. Yeah, and so it's color coded a little differently to indicate that it's more serious. But the other really super neat feature this had is it has some formatters built into it. One of the interesting ones is that you can have your log output be formatted to JSON, which is actually super useful. So if I go up here and we're going to do log.setFormatter, and there is a what is it? It's called JSON formatter. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So link that. We're going to create an instance that's struct to say that's the formatter that we want to use. And then we have to specify some additional fields that this log can have. So we're going to say log with fields. Say log.fields. So I'm going to say like day, foo, and time bar. Yeah, I don't really have any like good information to put here, so I'm just kind of putting stuff. Oh, that's the wrong character. And so now, if I should do this info, this is a JSON message. This first one should have some additional information here. Yeah, see, this when you with fields, you're basically kind of like inserting in like arbitrary information that's not normally there. But you'll see now the info, like what level it was and what the message was, the time, all this information that normally was in this kind of just standard out like this. Now it's in this JSON string, which is depending on how you're using things. This could be much more useful because it's pretty common to use certain storage services like like Mongo, or if you're this is usually considered time series data. So maybe you want to stick this in like InfluxDB or something. These are all databases that tend to leverage heavily things that are in like JSON formats. So this would be super useful for that. That's really the only real main difference that I noticed that this particular library had that was super useful. I know you can also create your own formatters if you're using this library, this logrus framework. It's actually, there is something here somewhere. I just gotta find it. There's somewhere in this documentation here, there's information about creating your own formatters, you'd have to just find it. There's an interface. Here it is. Yeah, you can define your own formatter by implementing the formatter interface, requiring a format method. Format takes an argument of entry, and it has some fields, and then basically you just have to say like how you're like serializing the data basically. And there's a couple of other third-party formatters already here. One's for Logstash, which is that's very convenient. FluentD, I never used that, but I know it's used with Kubernetes. And by default, it only has text and JSON, but there's other formatters here you can. So that's all. That's all I got for you today about logging. It's pretty straightforward, even though that the standard logger doesn't have like a whole lot to it. Depending on what you're using or what you need it for, that could just be all you really need. If you like the video, be sure to share it in case someone else would find it useful. If you have any questions or have any comments about how you find this, how you may use logging in your system, be sure to leave a comment down below because I'm curious about maybe if there's some other logging frameworks. This was just like the first one that I was made aware of. If you want to follow me on other platforms, I should have some links wherever this thing is. If you want to know when I post more tutorial videos, be sure to like or follow, subscribe, or wherever whatever the vernacular is for wherever you're watching this. With that, y'all come on back now, and I'll see you next time.